Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Collegian Football Podcast here with Alexis Yoder. I'm Justin Morganstein. Alexis, I hear there's a big game this weekend.
Is there?
Yeah, it's what my sources tell me. But I would have definitely gotten this wrong on a trivia question.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State's last top 5 matchup was 1999 against Arizona, which is I was scrolling through today just trying to look when the last one was because I couldn't just remember it. And then I was like, really? I mean, that was the year before I was born, so I obviously don't remember. But yeah, it's really interesting. And obviously these games don't come around too often, so it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, super excited for this matchup between number 4 Penn State and number 3 Iowa. And I think Iowa's a team that we've been looking forward to this game pretty much the whole season. We knew that this was going to be one of their toughest of their 3 away contests, that they, have a pretty good chance of ending up on the wrong side of the scoreline. But Iowa's surprised a lot of people this year, and I guess especially against Maryland last week. I know some people thought that it was going to be a bit closer of a game than it was. But, yeah, that was a hot take. But definitely not a good night for Maryland, and especially good night for Iowa. Penn State obviously had a huge momentum boost last week, shutting out Indiana in front of a stripe-out crowd. You couldn't ask for a better setup going into Kinnick Stadium this weekend. I mean, this is just going to be an amazing game, and I know I'm excited to watch it.
Me too. And by the way, before we keep going, sorry to all those people who threw their house on Maryland after I said they were going to beat Iowa last week. But
hot take.
Anyway, I mean, they looked absolutely dominant. Talia Tagovailoa, had 1 interception going into that game, and he leaves the game with 6 interceptions, which is pretty insane. And turnovers have been the story about with Iowa all year. They lead the nation with 16. They have been unbelievably good in their zone that they always play, and where Penn State's going to get a chance to see it themselves this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about what Penn State's accomplished coming into this game, starting with their offense. We heard a lot in the offseason that Mike Yurcich and this offense were really clicking, and we've seen it. We've seen it a lot so far, and that's something that's going to have to continue. He continues to, make Sean Clifford look comfortable, feel comfortable, giving him options to, perform well. And, he keeps hitting Dotson and Washington when he needs to, being smart with the ball, not making, costly turnovers in big game situations. And, they were 0-5 at this time last year, and now they're 5-0. You can really see the difference in his performance and his maturity, and that's what's winning them these games right now.
Yeah, Mike Yurcich is fitting the bill so far on what he's been able to accomplish with this offense. Like you just said, they started 0-5 last year, and now they're 5-0, and Sean Clifford looks like a totally new quarterback, and he is finding the right reads quickly. He's being decisive. He's being efficient. And Mike Yurcich said it at his media availability today about his play calling so far, and he said it's about efficiency. It's not about sex appeal, is quote for quote. But he has just absolutely been able to enhance not only Sean's play but the entire offense, just with the quick hitters they've been able to incorporate. They're throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage more than they ever have under James Franklin. Obviously, the running game needs to get going too, but the tight ends have been able to produce and kind of make up for that. So this offense, I think, still has more to achieve because they always still talk about how we haven't even seen, half of what Mike has to offer in this offense. But it's really encouraging for them to see, and even in practice, when you're watching Yurcich like yesterday, he's so hands-on and he's always communicating. He was even playing some cornerback yesterday against Jahan and Parker, which was fun. But seriously, he's such a football guy. Like, just the way he talks and the way James Franklin said he loves plays. Like, that's just such a vague thing to say, but at the same time,
it's like so great.
Yeah, when Yurcich talks, you can just tell how much he loves offense, how much he loves being able to work with these guys every day. And it's something that really, I guess they haven't had in recent years, and it's paying big dividends so far.
Yeah, it's starting to seem like they're getting, this short amount of time, a lot of consistency with what they've been running so far. And like you said, they said we haven't even seen half of it, which just makes me even more excited, getting into some of these higher stakes games in the Big Ten Conference. And that's going to be something we're going to have to look out for, some more variety on the offensive side of the ball. And, we saw it on the defensive side with the amount of pre-snap movement that the defense had against Indiana. And, that really was a big factor in the game against Indiana. We'll shift there. Penn State's defense was, once again, phenomenal. We say it every single week, but they just keep performing very consistently. And Bren Pry threw a lot of wrinkles in here. I mean, we saw Nick Tarburton move inside, Jesse Luketa moving up. That was very interesting, and, they brought a lot of pressure early and often, and that's really what got them so in control of this game, really right from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. It's very rare that I say this about a football game because you and me both, of course, you know how much we love football on this podcast. But, my God, that was a boring game.
I remember us saying it. I feel like this is just moving insanely slow.
Indiana's offense was at one point just actually painful to watch. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily Michael Penix's fault. As we kind of outlined the entire week, their offensive line did not play well whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Their playmakers were shut down by Penn State secondary. Freifogel didn't do very much, and
he was who I was betting on to get to my score prediction.
And I don't think anyone got that goose egg.
No, I didn't have. I definitely didn't have a shutout on my stripe out bingo card.
No, but Freifogel didn't do much. Hendershot after the first half rate a few catches, didn't end up doing much, and once Penix was out, it was just. It was over by halftime, even though we might have not have known it was over. Like, once it was 14-0, they were kind of out of reach. But at the same time, I definitely want to commend the secondary for – I think that was their best game so far.
I'll agree with
they were – like, Penn State's pressure was good, I would say, and they definitely took advantage of that O-line. But there were times also when Penix had time to drop back. And what we talked about it last week. The key with him was letting him throw the ball down the field. And the Penn State secondary didn't even let that happen. Like, they covered extremely, extremely well. Obviously, Joey Porter had a terrific interception, which I was shocked to hear that was his first pick, too.
Yeah.
He's just been flying all around the ball this year, last year. Since he's come on this campus, he has been incredibly good with his ball skills, and just like his father did in the NFL. But also, Tariq Castro-Fields playing like the veteran he is supposed to be. He's always had that inconsistency at Penn State. Whether it's getting beat down the field or just, getting burned over the top, he has really prevented all that this year. It's just playing sound football in the secondary. And it's really as good of a 1-2 punch as you're going to find. But as we'll talk about in a little bit, Iowa's a good 1-2 punch themselves. So that's definitely a positive area for Penn State that they can take away from that Indiana game.
Yeah, for sure. And Iowa's pass game on their offense is rated, kind of towards the bottom of the Big Ten right now, whereas Penn State's is kind of in the top 5. So, if they can force Iowa to throw the ball downfield like they did against Indiana, I think that secondary has another great opportunity with this game to make some big plays and big interceptions, and they've proven that they're capable of doing that, and that's something that's going to have to continue. We saw it against Indiana, they're going to have to see it against Iowa. And turning to the offensive side of the ball, we said it, run game has to get going, and they really didn't convert a lot on those, third and short situations, and that's gonna be trouble. I mean, you have these built running backs, Kevon Lee, John Lovett, who they've raved about, them being able to get the dirty 3 or 4 yards that you need for a first down, and we really didn't see that against Indiana. That's gonna be an area of concern for this team.
Yeah, if you had to pick one glaring issue from that game, the short yardage situations, especially on third down scenarios, was definitely their biggest issue, especially offensively. Getting the running backs going. I mean, it's going to be an every week thing until it happens, but they just, like we said, they weren't able to churn out those small yards when they needed them most. But what I think you can be encouraged by is what they've actually been able to do on third and long. They've been really good in those situations, and especially with Clifford running the ball himself. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's got to be perhaps their top rusher on the year. He has been running the ball really effectively, And if they can incorporate that on third and shorts as well, I think that would be a great thing to mix in, especially with some deception in the RPO game. If they can keep everyone not illegally downfield, of course, which we saw a couple times. But I think that if they can continue to get creative with those scenarios, considering the success they've been able to have in other areas with the pass game, the quarterback rush game, I think that could certainly improve the situation. Now, you can't expect Penn State to get shut down on all those runs all the time. Like Kevon Lee, if you hand him the ball, he's pretty much going to be able to get you 3 yards whenever you ask him to. But opening up the offense by using that creativity will only allow Kevon Lee and the rest of the running backs to be able to run efficiently. So it's a small concern, but at the same time, when Tom Allen's kicking field goals down 21-0,
this was a hot topic of discussion for us during that game.
In the booth, yeah. Oh my God, I was like, come on, just go for it. Like, you're down 21-0 in the second half, and he goes for a field goal, and poetic justice served at its best. AK comes in and blocks that for the second time this year. He's I was about to say, when Jair Brown is listing his basketball players after practice yesterday, he had to be on there. He's 2 block kicks this year, so he's making an impact on special teams and the defense as well. So that's a good sign.
Yep. Also, getting back to your point about Sean Clifford and the rushing, he is currently 3rd on the team in rushing yards with a net of 137 yards right now. So, and you got Noah Kane.
They've been big runs, though.
Yeah, Noah Kane at the top, then Kevon Lee, Sean, and then John Lovett. All right, let's get to Iowa. I mean, matchup of 2 unbeatens here, and Iowa's offense, I mean, we talked about it before, like they may not be as strong in the pass game compared to other teams in the Big Ten, but they've still been able to put points on the board, and lots of them on multiple occasions. I mean, Penn State's defense is maybe their toughest task to accomplish yet, but it's certainly going to be a great game. I'm excited.
Yeah, Iowa is the team of the weird stats so far this year. The big thing with them is they have 16 turnovers, which leads the nation by a good margin right now through 5 games, which is pretty crazy. And obviously that has a lot to do with their beatdown of Maryland, where they had 7 turnovers and including 5 picks. So
that's insane. Their
defense comes in really hot, and because of the amount they've been able to take the ball away on defense, their offense is last in the Big Ten in total yards and yards per game. Like, for a team that's
unbelievable.
Ranked number 3 in the country, that is pretty incredible. But it's been because of the short fields the defense has gotten for them. And being able to take advantage of those short fields and converting touchdowns instead of field goals is what they've been able to do. And if they can continue that, that's certainly a formula for success. I mean, you can't, if you're the offense, you can't start with it you basically have to give what you're take what you're given, and that is, if they get the ball at the 40-yard line, then that's what they're going to work with, and they've been doing it well. And we've seen from Spencer Petras this year, he's been very much like Sean Clifford. And the fact that a lot of guys wanted him out as the quarterback last year, and he has shown significant improvement and is leading this team right now, and they're the number 3 ranked team in the country.
Yeah, going back to those turnovers that Iowa's defense been able to create, that's a credit to their secondary as well. I mean, they've obviously come up with some big plays thus far this season. So, maybe, Yurcich is trying to do more of those, like, short runs down the field and just get the ball out of Clifford's hands fast and efficiently and just, keep with that hurry-up offense. I think that'll get them into some good situations in the red zone where they're able to, as we said before, get the run game going, get those dirty 3 or 4 yards, and find the end zone that way. Because against this team, just as I was not going to look to challenge Penn State's secondary, because, I'm sure they're well aware of how many turnovers that they've created. Same thing on the other side. They're going to Penn State's going to have to be careful throwing the ball down the field in long game situations. I mean, they do have Dotson to rely on. He's obviously made some huge plays down the field, but still it's going to be a tough matchup against that Iowa secondary.
So here's how I see this one kind of playing out. It's Iowa's MO has always been zone.
Yep.
They run probably the most zone in the Big Ten, and they rely on their secondary to cover up and their D-line to be the ones that get pressure, and their linebackers are play sort of that hybrid role where sometimes they're rushing the passer and sometimes they're dropping back into coverage. But their corners, we talked about Penn State's corners, between Riley Moss and Matt Hankins, they are extremely, extremely talented on the back end there. And with that zone, Penn State's going to have to run the ball effectively, like we've said for weeks now.
Maybe the breakout game.
And they're going to have to, find the soft spots in that zone. And the downfield looks, they might not be there. I wouldn't expect Jahan Dotson to be, flying into the end zone on the first offensive play of the game like we saw against Villanova. But seriously, they're going to have to hit slants or just hit plays across the middle.
Get the tight ends involved too.
But like you said, also getting the ball out of Clifford's hands quickly still because of the turnovers. We've seen what happens when, especially because these defensive backs for Iowa, I think Franklin talked about this week. He said in film he noticed they have such a tendency to lock in on the quarterback's eyes. And last year, that was Sean's biggest problem, was just him, looking at those reads a little too early and giving the defense, a sign that he was throwing the ball there. And that's something that Iowa excels at tremendously. And it's part of the reason why they have, 50 interceptions to begin the year. But
the amount of turnovers that they have.
Yeah, I'm sure the deception part of what their offense is going to do has been a big part of the game plan for Yurcich and Clifford this week, just because of that zone they play and how those DBs like to drop back. And you have a guy, and like we talked about, Jahan Dotson and Parker Washington, who are really good across the middle, who can kind of, once they get space in between that zone, find a way to make one move, then make a play. Yep. So that's going to be kind of the key for Penn State's offense against this defense. And, you can say that not turning the ball over is going to be critical, but it's really hard against this Iowa team, especially when you're throwing the ball.
It's going to be hard for both teams. I'm just going to be really interested in seeing who wins the turnover battle here. I mean, Franklin said it every single week. We got to win the turnover battle. We got to win the turnover battle. That's going to be critical in this game with how well these defenses have been playing so far this season. I mean,
and especially considering what we know in recent history with Penn State Iowa games as well, one turnover could be the game. It could be a 13-10 game in the fourth quarter, and that one turnover ends up, deciding who wins and loses. So they're going to have to, of course, make explosive plays down the field because that's a huge aspect of the game. But at the same time, not being the first one to make that mistake could end up being the one who, loses this game.
Let's take a look at this James Franklin Penn State history stat. James Franklin is 0-9 all-time in true road games versus top 10 teams. This is interesting. Yeah. This could be the game for him.
0-7 at Penn State, 0-9 Vanderbilt. Some would say he's due. Some would say that
the trend continues.
Yeah, it's whatever way you want to look at it. But this is such a good opportunity for him this weekend.
Yeah, this could be a statement win.
Not that I don't think Iowa's a true, team that could make the playoff and could be in contention at the end of the year. But after Alabama and Georgia, it's been talked about, for the last couple weeks now. There's definitely a significant drop off, and Iowa's a team that could certainly be beaten. And Penn State should not be intimidated going into this game at all. They're only 1.5-point underdogs at Kinnick, which leads me to believe that if they were at Beaver Stadium, they would be significant favorites, or by at least 3 points. And
they're lucky it's not a night game, though.
Well, by the way, we haven't even mentioned that yet. I don't know how Penn State got away with this not being a night game.
They got real lucky. I really don't understand. I mean, second half, it might be starting to get a little bit
Remember,
darker,
that's 3 p.m. Central Time,
That's
too.
also, yes, that's true.
No, it's nothing will compare to 11 a.m. at Wisconsin, which is a shame, honestly. But no, seriously, they definitely are lucky it's not a night game. But at the same time, they've talked about all week, and who knows what exactly the emotions are going to the game. I'm not the one walking on the field, but they say once you're there, the noise is really the only factor. It's just on offense, being able to get your play calls out, being able to talk to your O-line, talk to the receivers, all the personnel. But besides that, that's just football, they said. It's just absolute concentration from that point on, whether it's night, day, games on Mars, whatever it is. They just got to lock in and focus up. And that's again, like we said last week, that's been really the mood within the facility, it seems, this week.
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of those games where you would have to rely on your veteran leaders, but there's just so many, upperclassmen on this team, whether it's transfers, players that have been in the program for a while. From that respect, they have a lot of experience at the collegiate level in big-time games, and that's something that's going to be really important from a focus standpoint, from a communication standpoint. You're going to have if you're James Franklin right now, you're feeling extremely comfortable with the leaders and the veterans that you have on the field. I mean, everybody at this point has, a good amount of college experience, whether it's this season or in previous seasons. So that's something that you've got to be feeling really comfortable with if you're James Franklin. If you're a Penn State fan, you got to be confident in this team.
Yeah, and Sean Clifford's played in a big game and won here before too. So it's not like he's not used to this environment, and by now he is a very, very veteran presence in there. And I also think with Clifford, the way he's been able to manage this pressure, I think he's done a really nice job with kind of staying calm, not getting too high or not getting too low. He just seems to have found that confident groove, which he didn't have all last year. And until this week, I didn't even remember. He didn't even start the Iowa game last year. It was Will Levis. And
we were at a very different point last year when it comes to Penn State football.
Like 0-5 to 5-0 is just a ridiculous concept to me. But he is just absolutely locked in right now. And you would have to hope that he keeps that not high, too low mentality going into this weekend, especially because of the environment and because of all the implications that happen that are going into this game, with especially in the national scale. So
awesome.
That'll be big from him, and it'll also, like we are going to bring up for about the 45th time in the last couple weeks, it's time for this run game to step up, Alexis. I don't know what else to say at this point.
Can we lead that into the 3 keys for this week's game?
Yes, we absolutely can.
Key number 1.
So we'll go key number 1. We're going to say it until just about, we'll say until they rush for, we'll say 150, 200 yards a game.
All right.
This time I said establish Noah Kane last week. This time I'm going to simple it up. Just find your best back that night. In the first half, feel out John Lovett, feel out Noah Kane, feel out Kevon Lee. Once someone establishes some success, ride them. Seriously, you can't afford to fool around with this game at all. The short yardage situations, like we said against Indiana, did not come to bite them. But in a game like this, they're going to be so critical, because getting as many first downs as you can, keeping a lead, and then running the clock.
Giving your defense a rest, too.
And using the clock as your friend in this game is going to be, for both teams, that's going to be their strategy. We know what Iowa does. We know they pound the rock. We know they run behind their O-line, and they're going to pass the ball only when, you're fully committed to the run. And so they're going to be, the time of possession clock is always going to usually point in their favor, except with them getting these turnovers, which has been the outlier. But seriously, using the clock as your friend, establishing that one running back, which I have a feeling is going to be Kevon Lee.
I was going to say, I feel like this is his game. Yeah, 100%. Key number 2?
Key number 2 is absolutely got to be ball protection, because we've explained it about 2 times already. They have 16 turnovers on the year, and that is ridiculous, Alexis.
It really is, considering we're barely halfway through the season.
No, not even. And the way they've been able to use those picks and make them kill the other team.
And turn them into points, too.
Yeah.
Points off of turnovers.
We saw Penn State, all year last year, turn the ball over and then didn't give their defense a chance. And in this game, easy points are brutal to whatever team it's going against, because we know how hard it's going to be with a full field to scrap and claw your way down the field against these defenses, and giving a team a short field is just a gift to them. It's going to be really, really helpful to their offense, because I think you and I both think that this is going to be a relatively low-scoring game.
Yeah, I say first team to 20 points wins at this point.
That is absolutely the case. I don't think any of us had the scores, very much.
This is definitely going to be a defensive battle. So ball protection for both teams is going to be a deciding factor in this game.
And my last key for you is, and we just talked about defense. Brent Pry, do not change a thing. Continue to do what you've been doing. I mean, they are really, really impressive right now, and and I don't think James Franklin could have explained it better than he did last week after the game when he was like, nobody's really standing out from a point of, wow, this guy's the superstar. He's leading this defense right now. Like, we could say that about 5 guys or 7 guys even. Like,
the whole group for just all I care.
Complementary football between your offense and your defense is one thing. Like, as well, that's like important. It's kind of hard to be able to play off each other like that. The defense itself is playing complementary football right now. The DBs are playing off the linebackers. We're playing off the front 4 and all the other mixed together. And it is they're getting pressure. Arnold Ebiketie, oh my goodness, he has just been so big for them. He is continuing to get great pressure on the quarterback, and their interior defensive line is really going to have to step up this weekend, especially because I know they got Tyler Lindenbaum, I think his name is, who is the first-team All-Big Ten center, who is really talented, is going to be an NFL player. We know how they churn those big guys out in Iowa. But being able to get pressure at the front 4, the linebackers continuing to be aggressive but also disciplined at the same time, and the DBs just keeping up what they've been doing. I mean, the corners, like we said, have been performing really well. And how much better of a safety duo can you get right now than Jaquan Brisker and Jair Brown, who played really some excellent football.
Gotta trust in your defense. Don't change a thing. Hoping to see a lot of variety like we did last week against Indiana, because if they do that, then they're gonna catch Iowa off guard many times throughout this game.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us this week on the Collegian Football Podcast. For Justin Morganstein, I'm Alexis Yoder. We'll see you here next week.